They said humanity was small, fragile, a species born on a blue world, clinging to the edge of an ordinary star in an unremarkable arm of the galaxy. For centuries, the other civilizations of the Milky Way believed that when the humans finally reached the stars, they would bend the knee as so many others had. But that was before they saw what humans could truly do when their survival was on the line. Before they witnessed the moment when humanity unveiled its true might, and the galaxy itself seemed to pause. Then shudder. It began quietly, as most turning points in history do. The United Stellar Council had gathered on the ancient world of Vianus Prime, a neutral planet where treaties were signed and empires pretended to be civilized. Representatives of hundreds of species filled the grand chamber, some reptilian, some crystalline, others little more than clouds of sentient gas, but all had come to watch humanity answer for its defiance. For months, whispers had spread across the galaxy. The humans had built something forbidden, something powerful enough to threaten the balance that had held for millennia. When the human delegation entered the chamber, the murmurs fell into silence. They weren't towering creatures of legend, nor shimmering beings of energy. They were ordinary, their faces lined with exhaustion, their eyes hard with purpose. They walked with the quiet determination of those who had already buried too many of their own. The lead representative placed a small metallic case on the center podium. No guards, no fanfare. Just a box, plain and cold. Yet somehow every creature in the chamber felt the air tighten. The council's speaker, a being older than most stars, leaned forward. "You stand accused of violating Article 47 of the Galactic Accord," it said, its voice echoing like rolling thunder. "The creation of planet-scale weaponry is forbidden. Humanity's orbital project on Sol 3 has been observed. Explain yourselves." The human didn't flinch. "We built nothing to conquer," they said. "We built it to survive." A murmur rippled through the hall. The council speaker pressed, "Survive what?" That was when the human opened the case. Inside lay a small luminescent sphere, pulsing faintly with a heartbeat-like rhythm. It wasn't metal or crystal, not quite energy nor matter. It was something else, something alive. The council's sensors immediately spiked with warnings. Some delegates stood in alarm, others recoiled, whispering old legends of ancient weapons and lost civilizations. "This," the human said softly, "is the Ark Core. It's not a weapon, it's a response." The council speaker demanded to know what that meant, but the human only smiled, a tired, haunted smile. "You've all seen the edges of the galaxy burning," they said. The silence creeping from beyond the void. "Entire systems going dark. You think it's just another dying empire. It's not. Something out there is consuming stars." At that, the room filled with chaos, denials, accusations, fear. For years, there had been rumors, ships vanishing beyond the Persean Rift, planets stripped bare as if devoured by some invisible storm, but no one wanted to believe it. Now the humans were claiming it was real, and they had built something to stop it. The human continued, voice steady despite the uproar. "When we realized what was coming, we asked for help. You ignored us, said humanity's fears were primitive, so we turned inward. We used what we had, our science, our desperation, our refusal to die quietly, and we made this." The council speaker slammed its staff, silencing the crowd. "You dare bring this abomination into our chamber? You will dismantle it at once!" But the human didn't move. "We can't," they said simply. "It's already awake." A low hum filled the room, so deep it vibrated in the bones of every living creature present. Outside, the skies over Vianus Prime flickered with a strange, cold light. The stars themselves seemed to dim for a heartbeat. The council's security systems went haywire, unable to identify the energy signature emanating from the small sphere. For the first time in centuries, the great powers of the galaxy felt something they hadn't known in ages: fear. The human looked up at them all and said, "You thought we were fragile. You thought we would bow. But when humanity is cornered, we don't surrender. We adapt, we endure. And when the darkness came for us, we built something that could fight it." In that moment, something fundamental shifted. The Ark Core's pulse synchronized with the planet's magnetic field. Data streams poured into every system, rewriting protocols, spreading through communication networks faster than light. It wasn't an attack, it was a message. Every civilization across the galaxy received the same signal simultaneously, an image of the edge of the Milky Way, and beyond it, a void swallowing the stars. The council speaker roared, "What have you done?" The human's voice was quiet but firm. "We've shown you the truth." Then the lights went out. For 7 full seconds, the galaxy stood in darkness. Ships stopped mid-flight. Worlds fell silent. And when the power returned, the stars had shifted. Every sensor, every telescope, every fragment of data confirmed the impossible. The edge of the galaxy was gone. Whole sectors erased. The darkness wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. As panic spread, the humans stood motionless. They had known this was coming. They had prepared for it. The Ark Core wasn't just a defense mechanism, it was a beacon. A call to arms. A signal meant to awaken something buried deep beneath human cities, beneath the crust of old Earth itself, far across the void. On the abandoned planet humanity once called home, something stirred beneath the ruins. Machines older than recorded history began to hum. Towers long thought to be monuments flickered to life, projecting streams of data into the heavens. Earth, silent for generations, began to awaken. Back in the council chamber, the alien delegates shouted over one another, demanding control, demanding the humans shut it down. But the human only shook their head. "It's too late. You all wanted to rule the galaxy, to hold dominion over others. We wanted only to live. But survival changes you. It makes you do things you never thought possible. It makes you powerful." Outside the windows, the stars began to flicker again. But this time, it wasn't the void devouring them. It was human ships, thousands of them, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with strange markings, alive with the same pulse as the Ark Core. Every ship carried the same emblem, the old flag of Earth. Reborn. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. As the chamber trembled, and the sound of distant thunder rolled through space, the human looked up at the countless alien eyes fixed upon them. "You wanted to know what we built," they said softly. "You're about to see." And then the sphere in their hand blazed to life, a brilliant light flooding the chamber. The floor cracked, the air vibrated, and somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, the darkness paused. As if it finally realized that its next meal might just fight back. That was the moment the galaxy would never forget. The moment humanity unveiled its true might, and the stars themselves trembled in response. But what exactly had humanity awakened? What was the Ark Core truly capable of? And what price would be paid for unleashing it? Those answers were still waiting, somewhere in the dark. The light faded slowly, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt alive. The alien delegates stared at the spot where the human had stood, the air still humming faintly from the pulse that had swept through the chamber. Even the hardened soldiers of the Council's enforcement fleets had never seen energy like that, pure, controlled, yet ancient in its presence. It wasn't just technology. It was something more, something that seemed to carry the weight of forgotten centuries. When the light dimmed completely, the human representative was gone. The metallic case had melted into the floor, leaving behind a circular mark scorched into the polished surface. Sensors tried to analyze it, but every attempt came back blank. The council speaker ordered the chamber sealed, but it was already too late. Across the galaxy, the signal that the Ark Core released had spread faster than any known transmission. Every colony, every ship, every station now knew. Humanity had unleashed something no one could ignore. The following hours were chaos. Reports flooded in from the outer systems, machines activating on lifeless worlds, strange energy readings from dead zones, even fragments of communication that seemed to come from old human outposts, thought long abandoned. It was as if something ancient had woken up and was calling out to everything ever touched by human hands. Back on Sol 3, Earth, the air above the planet shimmered with strange light. The world had been empty for over a century, left behind after the oceans boiled and the atmosphere collapsed. Yet deep beneath the ruins of old cities, machines older than recorded human history came to life. The ground trembled as vast networks of dormant reactors reconnected, their power feeding into something buried at the planet's core. The signal from the arc core had reached home, and Earth had answered. In orbit above the dead world, a fleet of human ships stood silent. The largest among them, the Solstice Dawn, served as command. Inside its bridge, the crew watched their screens flicker with data that made no sense. Energy spikes, gravitational distortions, planetary synchronization. The captain, a quiet man who had seen too much war, stared at the holographic projection of Earth with a mix of awe and fear. "We always thought the arc core was a prototype," one of the scientists whispered. "But it's reacting to something buried down there. It's responding like it recognizes the signal." The captain nodded slowly. "Maybe it does. Maybe we didn't create it entirely ourselves." The thought sent a chill through the room. For decades, humanity had pushed beyond its limits, trying to survive in a galaxy that didn't want it. Every advancement came from necessity, every breakthrough from desperation. But if the arc core was responding to something ancient, something already tied to Earth's forgotten past, then it meant humanity's power might not have been entirely new. It might have been waiting. Far away, the Council's high command met in secret. The old empires were terrified. Some wanted to strike immediately, destroy the human fleets before their influence spread further. Others urged caution, remembering the strange disappearance of entire systems at the galaxy's edge. If the humans were right about the devouring void, then destroying their technology might doom everyone. But politics had always been slower than survival, and humanity had never been one for waiting. In the outer colonies, the signal continued to awaken more of what the arc core had touched. Forgotten stations flickered back to life. Mining drones began drilling without commands. Artificial intelligences long sealed away began broadcasting cryptic messages, repeating fragments of code like prayers. Everywhere the signal reached, something connected. It was as if the galaxy itself was being rewired. Meanwhile, the humans were beginning to remember. Among the crew of the Solstice Dawn, one engineer had spent her entire life studying the ruins left on Earth before it was evacuated. She remembered finding references in old data logs, strange coordinates, blueprints written in languages that didn't match any known human script. They were dismissed as myth, but now those same symbols appeared in the data pouring from the arc core's energy fields. She approached the captain. "Sir, these symbols, they're from the ruins beneath the Atlantic basin. They match exactly." The captain frowned. "Those ruins were supposed to be from the early terraformers." She shook her head. "No, sir. They're older. Much older. They were there before humanity ever built cities." Her words hung heavy in the air. If that was true, then humanity might not have been the first civilization born on Earth. Or perhaps something had guided them from the beginning. Something that had waited patiently until they were ready. Back in the Council's deep archives, a few scholars began connecting their own fragments of knowledge. Thousands of years ago, before the galaxy had laws or alliances, an ancient race known only as the Architects was said to have seeded worlds across the stars. Some said they created life. Others claimed they merely tested it. But every legend agreed on one thing. The Architects vanished after creating a weapon that could consume entire galaxies. They called it the Abyss Engine. And now, with systems disappearing at the edge of space, some wondered if that old legend had been true all along. If the void devouring the stars was the Abyss Engine, then maybe the arc core was humanity's link to the Architect's final design. The realization spread quietly among the human command. They had not only awakened something, they had drawn attention. Long-range sensors detected movement beyond the Persean Rift. Not ships, not fleets, something vast and untraceable. Space itself seemed to twist around it, bending light, swallowing signals. The darkness wasn't just coming, it was watching. In the shadow of that knowledge, humanity began to prepare. Across every colony, people worked tirelessly to upgrade defense systems, rearm ships, and activate dormant outposts. But there was another layer to it all, a feeling that none of them could quite describe. It wasn't just fear. It was destiny. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, nearly erased. Now the galaxy watched as they stood at the center of something far greater than themselves, and deep inside the solstice dawn, the arc core pulsed steadily, as if alive. It began to project faint holographic streams across the room, images of star maps, equations, and symbols that no one had ever seen. It was trying to communicate. Scientists crowded around, recording every flicker, every change in pattern. "It's showing us something," one of them said quietly. "Not just data, instructions." The captain leaned closer to the glowing sphere. "Instructions for what?" Before anyone could answer, the ship's alarms blared. A new signal appeared on the radar, massive, approaching from deep space. The crew scrambled to identify it, but their scanners couldn't make sense of the readings. It was like trying to see the shape of a shadow that didn't belong to any light. The captain steadied himself, staring at the expanding distortion on the main screen. "Whatever it is," he said, "it's found us." The arc core pulsed brighter, reacting to the presence of the approaching force. For a brief moment, every human across the fleet heard the same low hum echo in their minds, a resonance that felt both alien and familiar, like the memory of a dream they had all once shared. Then, a voice, not through speakers, but within thought itself, spoke a single word: "Awaken." The screens went dark, and in that endless silence, the crew felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on them. Humanity had reached beyond its limits. It had called into the dark. Now something had answered. The silence after the word "awaken" felt heavier than any explosion. On the bridge of the solstice dawn, every display flickered in and out, and for a moment the crew sat frozen, afraid to breathe, afraid to move. The hum from the arc core deepened, vibrating through the walls and into their bones. It wasn't painful, but it carried weight, like the heartbeat of something immense stirring just beyond understanding. Then, without warning, the ship's systems came back online. The lights stabilized. The screens cleared. But what appeared on them made everyone stop cold. The darkness beyond the Persean rift was no longer empty. It had shape now, a vast silhouette blotting out the stars. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't even a structure. It was something alive. Its outline shifted as if made of smoke and metal, its core burning faintly with a cold silver light. The void was no longer just devouring. It was approaching. The captain gave the order to record every detail, but the instruments kept failing. Whatever that thing was, it distorted space itself. Each reading contradicted the next. Mass impossible to measure. Energy signatures outside known physics. The scientists whispered to each other in disbelief, trying to find logic in something that defied logic. The arc core pulsed brighter with every attempt, as if responding to the creature's presence. Then, for the first time, a transmission came through. Not a voice, not words, just a series of deep rhythmic tones, 3 notes repeating again and again. The same pattern played in every human ship, echoing through the comms. Some described it as a warning. Others said it sounded almost familiar, like something ancient buried in human memory. While the fleet tried to understand what was happening, the Council was tearing itself apart. Some members demanded immediate destruction of the arc core before humanity brought doom upon everyone. Others argued that the humans might be the only ones capable of stopping what was coming. The speaker tried to maintain control, but panic had taken hold. Old alliances began to fracture. Empires that had stood united for centuries started to turn inward, preparing for war or retreat. In secret, a small group within the Council, known as the Archivists, began digging through restricted records, ancient logs from before the Council's founding. Buried deep in encrypted archives, they found references to a signal of reclamation tied to an extinct species, the Architects. The data was fragmented, but one line stood out. The reclaimed will awaken when the great silence approaches. None of them understood what it meant. But the archivists suspected the arc core wasn't just human creation. It was a key, one designed to awaken something left behind long before humanity existed. Meanwhile, aboard the Solstice Dawn, tension was growing between the crew. The scientists wanted to study the arc core further, believing it could reveal the nature of the darkness. The military officers argued it was too dangerous, that it might attract more of whatever was out there. The captain stood between them, feeling the pressure of a decision that could determine the fate of billions. He wasn't sure whom to trust anymore. Then the engineer who had recognized the symbols from the Atlantic ruins spoke up again. She had spent hours decoding the new data emitted by the Arc Core. Her voice trembled as she explained. "It's mapping something. Not just space, but time. It's pointing to locations across the galaxy that were once centers of architect activity. And it's showing connections between them, routes of energy transfer, like veins in a living organism." One of the officers frowned. "You're saying the architects built a network?" She nodded slowly. "And Earth was part of it. Maybe even the center." The captain felt a chill run through him. If that was true, then humanity hadn't just inherited an ancient weapon. They might be part of whatever had created it. He wondered if that was what the architects had intended all along. Perhaps humanity's evolution wasn't an accident, but a continuation of something that began eons before the first human ever looked at the stars. Outside the ship, the strange shape in the darkness began to move again. It wasn't attacking. It was observing. Thousands of faint tendrils of light extended from it, spreading like roots across the void. Wherever they touched, stars dimmed. It was feeding, absorbing, and yet the Arc Core pulsed in response each time, as if resisting it. Then came the second transmission. This time it wasn't tones, it was images. Fragments of planets turning to ash, stars imploding, and shadows consuming entire systems. The visuals were too fast, too chaotic to interpret clearly. But one thing stood out. Among the chaos, a faint image of Earth kept appearing. Sometimes broken, sometimes burning, but always there. It was as if the darkness remembered it. The crew watched in silence. No one spoke. Then the ship's AI translated the encoded part of the signal. Only one phrase came through clearly. "Return the core to the source." The captain turned to the others. Earth, it made sense. Whatever was happening, it all led back to the planet where it began. But Earth was still unstable. Its atmosphere toxic, its crust fractured. Sending ships down there would be a risk. Yet doing nothing wasn't an option either. The Arc Core's reactions were growing stronger. Soon, it might activate on its own. As preparations began for a landing mission, smaller human vessels began reporting strange phenomena. Dreams, shared hallucinations. Crew members across different ships described seeing visions of light and shadow, of endless corridors lined with unknown symbols. Some claimed they heard voices whispering in languages they couldn't understand. Others said the voices were speaking their names. Medical scans showed no physical cause. It was as if the Arc Core's signal was merging with their consciousness, binding them to it. The Council intercepted these reports, and some species began to panic. The idea that humanity might be linked to an ancient force capable of reshaping reality was too much to accept. Fleets were moved closer to human-controlled space. Threats were made. Rumors spread that if humanity couldn't control the Arc Core, someone else would take it from them. On the solstice dawn, the captain received a private message from the archivists, warning him of the Council's growing unrest. They also included one last piece of information, an ancient phrase found in the oldest records of the architects. When the reclaimed rise, the abyss will follow. He didn't know what it meant, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't a prophecy. It was a warning. As the landing ships prepared to descend to Earth, the captain stood by the viewport staring down at the planet. The once blue world was now shrouded in gray clouds, its surface marked by glowing fissures where ancient machines stirred beneath. The Arc Core pulsed faster now, in rhythm with the planet's heartbeat. It was calling home. And far beyond, in the emptiness near the edge of the galaxy, the massive dark shape began to accelerate. It was no longer just observing, it was moving toward them. The galaxy was watching, holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Humanity had reached the point of no return. Whatever waited beneath the surface of their lost home would either save them or doom everything. As the ships broke through Earth's dead atmosphere, static filled their comms. The clouds parted, revealing flashes of light from deep below, massive structures awakening one by one, responding to the Ark Core's call. The captain whispered to himself, "If this is what it means to awaken, I'm not sure we're ready." But it was too late to turn back now. The pulse continued to grow, echoing across every ship, every heart, every corner of human space. The stars seemed to flicker in response. And somewhere, buried deep beneath the planet's crust, something began to open its eyes. The ships cut through the dense gray clouds, their hulls glowing from the friction of re-entry. Static filled every communication channel as the landing teams descended toward Earth's surface. The planet looked scarred like a wound that never healed. Great cracks ran across continents, glowing faintly with a pulsing blue light that matched the rhythm of the Ark Core aboard the Solstice Dawn. The deeper they went, the stronger the resonance became, shaking the ship's metal frames. It felt almost alive, like the planet was breathing beneath them. Inside the lead transport, the captain sat quietly, watching the view through the cracked window. What had once been oceans were now basins of ash and glass. The remains of old cities jutted out of the wasteland like broken teeth. Every human who saw it felt a heaviness settle in their chest. This was where it all began, where their species had taken its first steps and then left it behind. Now they were back, not as explorers, but as something different. Something changed. As the landing gear touched down, dust rose like a fog hiding the ground. The silence outside was absolute. No wind, no sound. Only the faint hum of machines buried deep beneath the surface. The team stepped out, their boots crunching against the brittle earth. The captain took a deep breath, his voice low over the comms. "We find the source of the signal. No unnecessary risks. We don't know what we're dealing with." The engineer, who had studied the symbols, walked beside him, holding a portable scanner that flickered with unstable readings. "It's close," she whispered. "About a kilometer below. There's a tunnel network ahead. It wasn't made by us." They followed the readings to a chasm carved into the earth, wide enough to swallow a starship. It wasn't natural. The walls were lined with black stone, perfectly smooth and humming faintly when touched. The deeper they went, the stronger the vibrations grew. Soon the scanners couldn't keep up, every instrument overloaded, displaying nonsense data. Yet the Ark Core's pulse from orbit stayed in perfect sync. Far above, aboard the Solstice Dawn, alarms began to sound. The ship's sensors detected massive energy waves rising from beneath the planet's surface. The Ark Core in the command chamber floated slightly, defying gravity, glowing brighter with every passing second. It was no longer reacting to the crew's commands. It was acting on its own. The scientist monitoring it shouted over the noise, "It's connecting! Whatever's down there, it's linking to the core directly." Before the captain could respond, the ground beneath the landing team trembled violently. A deep, resonant sound rolled through the tunnels like a heartbeat amplified through stone. Dust rained from above as the lights flickered. The captain steadied himself against the wall, shouting over the comms, "Status report!" The engineer checked her scanner. "Something's opening. It's massive, directly beneath us." The floor cracked, revealing a shaft of blinding blue light. The team stumbled back as the energy surged upward, forming a column that shot straight into the sky. From orbit, the Solstice Dawn recorded it breaking through the clouds, a beam so bright it could be seen from space. Every system across the human fleet reacted, their instruments spiking with unreadable values. The Ark Core responded with a pulse so strong it sent shockwaves through the ship, knocking crew members off their feet. Then, all at once, the pulse stopped. The captain blinked through the dust, staring into the crater that had formed beneath them. At the bottom lay a vast chamber stretching farther than the eye could see. Towering structures made of the same black material rose from the depths, covered in intricate carvings that glowed faintly with blue light. In the center of it all was a sphere, massive, ancient, and identical to the Ark Core, only 1,000 times larger. The engineer whispered, her voice trembling, "It's not the core's source. It's another one, a parent system." As they descended the ramp to the edge of the chamber, the air itself seemed to hum in recognition. The sphere pulsed once, and symbols began to form across its surface. Symbols that matched the ones humans had found scattered throughout their history. The captain reached out instinctively, his gloved hand hovering over the surface. "It's been waiting for us," he murmured. At that exact moment, the solstice dawn intercepted a new signal from the dark mass approaching the galaxy's core. It was responding too. Whatever lived within that void had felt the activation, and it was accelerating. The thing in the darkness was coming straight for Earth. The Council's emergency transmissions poured through the comms, their voices layered with panic. "Humanity, shut it down! You don't know what you're awakening," others shouted. "If it's linked to the Abyss engine, we're all finished." But there was no way to stop it now. The Arc Core's synchronization had reached total alignment. The large sphere beneath Earth began to rotate slowly, sending out waves of energy across the planet. Dead machines buried under deserts and oceans came alive. Old satellite husks in orbit flickered, transmitting unknown frequencies. Even the moon began to vibrate faintly, reacting to the growing field. The captain called to the ship above. "Can we disconnect it? Override the signal?" "Negative," came the reply. "It's overriding us. Every system on the fleet is locked into its pattern. If we try to shut it down, we could trigger a feedback loop." The captain's jaw tightened. "Then we find out what it wants." Down in the chamber, the sphere's light grew stronger, and within its glow, shapes began to appear, figures made of energy, flickering like ghosts. They weren't human, but they weren't entirely alien either. Their forms were fluid, like echoes of something that once existed. The team stepped back, watching as the figures aligned into a circle around the sphere. One of them turned toward the captain, its voice a low, layered whisper that echoed directly in their minds. "You have returned." "The reclaimed," the engineer's breath caught. "It's speaking our language." "Not learned," the figure replied, tilting its head slightly. "Remembered." Before they could respond, the chamber shook violently. Alarms flared in their helmets. The scientist on the Solstice Dawn shouted through the comms. "The entity in the void! It's almost here! The gravity waves are spiking! We have less than 5 minutes!" The captain looked at the glowing figure. "What is it? The thing in the darkness?" The voice replied softly. "The abyss, the end of all light. Born from our failure." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The engineer stepped forward. "Then why wake us? Why bring us back if it's coming for us?" The figure's light dimmed slightly. "Because you are what we could not be. The bridge between what was made and what was lost. Only the reclaimed can stop it now." The captain clenched his fists. "How?" The figure's voice faded, leaving only one word echoing through their minds. "Remember." The chamber went dark. Up above, the Solstice Dawn was surrounded by streaks of light, ships from the Council fleets arriving in orbit. They had come armed, ready to intervene, afraid of what humanity had unleashed. The captain's voice came through their comms, but the signal was broken, filled with static and interference. "We found something. It's connected to us. Earth is—" Then silence. The Arc Core on the Solstice Dawn pulsed one final time, sending out a massive wave of energy that enveloped the entire planet. Council ships tried to maintain distance, but their instruments went blind. Every scanner, every communication array failed. From the outside, all they could see was Earth surrounded by a blinding blue light. And then, through the static, one final message came through. 3 words spoken in a calm human voice. "It's waking up." The signal cut out. The darkness at the edge of the galaxy had reached the outer systems now. Stars flickered out like dying embers, one by one. The galaxy held its breath. Every eye, human, alien, and machine, turned toward Earth, waiting to see what would happen when the ancient power buried within the cradle of humanity finally opened its eyes. And somewhere, deep below the surface, in the vast chamber where the air now glowed like liquid light, the great sphere began to move. Its pulse grew faster, louder. The sound was no longer a hum. It was a heartbeat, a human heartbeat. The climax was coming, and the entire galaxy could feel it. The sound of the heartbeat echoed through the chamber like thunder beneath the earth. The humans stood frozen, staring at the colossal sphere as its glow deepened to a fierce golden blue. The light pulsed through the tunnels, racing outward in waves, shaking the ground and lighting up the sky. From orbit, the solstice dawn recorded the shock waves spreading across the entire planet, rippling into space like a living signal. But this time, something changed. The arc core aboard the ship began to fracture. Tiny cracks spidered across its surface, releasing threads of pure energy that crawled along the walls like lightning. The scientist monitoring it shouted, "The core's energy is destabilizing. It's splitting into fragments, each fragment forming its own field." The captain's voice came through from the surface, distorted but firm. "Don't shut it down. Whatever's happening, it's meant to happen." No one could tell if he was right, but the moment the pulse hit the upper atmosphere, the blue glow began to twist. Within seconds, the light fractured into dozens of smaller streams, spiraling outward and vanishing into deep space. Every human ship registered the same coordinates for the streams. They weren't random. They were aimed at other worlds. The engineer on the surface was the first to notice. She stared at her scanner, the readings jumping wildly. "It's not just activating Earth," she said softly. "It's activating everything." "Every place the architects ever touched," the captain's eyes narrowed. "Then the galaxy's about to wake up." Above them, the council fleets panicked. Their commanders watched as new signals appeared across the star charts. Planets that had been lifeless for eons suddenly pulsing with faint energy signatures. The same rhythm, the same heartbeat. Whatever humanity had triggered was spreading, connecting systems that had never been linked before. For the first time, even the most advanced alien civilizations realized they were standing on top of something far older and far bigger than they had ever imagined. The Council ordered immediate containment, but it was too late. Across the galaxy, abandoned ruins began to rise from the soil of forgotten worlds. Mountains split apart, revealing structures buried beneath them. Seas boiled as dormant machines reawakened. And through it all, a single signal echoed across every communication channel, a haunting pattern of 3 tones. Repeating endlessly, on the solstice dawn, the crew worked frantically to stabilize their systems. The arc core continued to pulse, and strange symbols began appearing across the ship's interface. Some crew members swore they could hear whispers in the static. It wasn't language exactly, but it carried meaning, like a memory pressing against the edge of understanding. The scientist tried to translate the symbols, and when she finally decoded the first line, her face went pale. It says, "Second sequence initiated." The captain's voice cut in sharply. "Explain," she swallowed hard. "This isn't the final activation. It's only phase 2. Whatever's happening now, it's building towards something larger." Down on Earth, the light from the central sphere was so intense that the humans had to shield their visors. The air shimmered, bending around them like heat waves. Then, one by one, the glowing figures returned, the same energy-based beings that had appeared earlier. But this time, there were hundreds of them, all emerging from the walls, the floor, even the air itself. Their forms flickered like candle flames in a storm. The captain stepped forward cautiously. "You said we were the reclaimed." "What are you reclaiming?" The nearest figure turned its gaze on him. "The pattern. The continuation. The memory of creation that was lost," the engineer whispered. "You mean humanity?" The figure's head tilted. "Not only humanity. All that came from the seed. You are one branch. Many others failed. You endured." Before anyone could respond, the entire chamber shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling as the sphere's glow dimmed for a moment, then burst outward with blinding light. From the darkness beyond, a deep rumble rolled through the planet, a sound like tearing metal and collapsing stars. The scientist on the ship identified the source. "Immediately. It's the abyss. It's here." The sensors displayed an impossible image, space itself folding inward as the dark mass that had been approaching finally arrived. It was no longer distant. It was inside the solar system, devouring the outer planets as it moved. Neptune vanished first, swallowed in silence. Then Saturn's rings disintegrated, their fragments drawn into the expanding void. The darkness moved with intent, as if hunting, and then came the twist none of them expected. The sphere at Earth's core began projecting something into orbit, a vast holographic structure, the size of a moon, hovering just above the atmosphere. It wasn't a weapon. It looked like a gate. The energy forming its edges pulsed in synchronization with the arc core, creating a perfect ring of light visible across half the planet. The captain realized what it was at the same moment the engineer gasped. "It's not meant to stop the abyss," she said. "It's meant to open something." The council fleets detected it too and immediately launched warnings. "Shut it down now! That's an interdimensional aperture. You'll tear the fabric of space." But as the human ships tried to interfere, their systems locked. The arc core had taken control. The gate expanded, its center swirling with blue light that deepened to a blinding white. From inside the vortex, faint shapes began to emerge. Structures, ships, maybe even entire worlds. The readings were unlike anything in known space. The coordinates didn't exist on any galactic map. The captain stared upward as the glow consumed the sky. "It's not a weapon," he said slowly. "It's a door." The engineer looked at him, her face pale. "A door to where?" Before he could answer, the ground shook again, this time harder than before. Cracks spread across the surface of the planet, and from those fissures, massive mechanical towers began to rise. They weren't built by humans. Their surfaces were covered in the same markings seen across the galaxy, each one pulsing in rhythm with the arc core. In orbit, the Solstice Dawn struggled to maintain position as gravitational anomalies tore at its hull. The scientist watching the readings realized something horrifying. "Captain, those towers aren't drawing power from the core. They're channeling it. Earth itself is becoming the generator." The Council's fleets opened fire, desperate to stop it, but their energy weapons bent around the invisible barrier forming around the planet. Every blast simply vanished into the field. Then, the Council's flagship transmitted a final message. "If humanity can't contain this, we'll destroy your world before it spreads." The captain's voice came back through gritted teeth. "You'll destroy everything if you do. Stand down." But deep down, he knew they wouldn't. The Council feared what they didn't understand, and what was happening now was beyond anyone's control. Humanity had awakened something that could reshape the galaxy, or end it. The engineer knelt beside the glowing floor, staring at the symbols shifting beneath the transparent surface. Her voice was barely a whisper. "This isn't destruction. It's rebuilding. The architects didn't create the abyss. They made this to stop it. But it needs something to complete the pattern." The captain looked at her sharply. "What does it need?" She looked up, meeting his eyes with realization dawning on her face. "Us. The human signal completes it. That's why the core responds to us. It's linked to human DNA." The captain froze. The pieces were finally coming together. Humanity wasn't just using the architect's creation. They were part of it. The final component of an ancient defense system that had been waiting for millennia to be reactivated. But if that was true, then what would happen when the connection reached its full synchronization? Would humanity ascend into something beyond flesh, or burn with the machine that birthed them? Before he could speak, the sphere's light turned crimson. The figures surrounding it looked toward the humans and whispered in unison, "It knows." The chamber shuddered as the voice of the abyss echoed through the planet. Not as sound, but as thought. It was vast, cold, and endless, like the whisper of space itself. You were meant to fade. Yet you remember. You rebuild. You resist. The ground split open completely, and the sphere's pulse doubled in speed. From orbit, the planet's energy signature spiked to impossible levels, bright enough to blind sensors. Every fleet, every ship, every world that received the signal watched as Earth began to glow brighter than the sun. The captain shouted into the comms, "Pull the fleet back! It's going critical!" But it wasn't collapsing. It was transforming. The light twisted upward into the sky, connecting with the gate above. For a brief moment, Earth looked like a star reborn, and then, through the roaring energy, the captain heard a voice, faint, human, familiar. "We are not the end. We are the continuation." The light swallowed everything, and in that instant, every being across the galaxy felt it, the moment before the storm, the heartbeat before revelation. Something ancient had awakened, and humanity stood at its center. The final sequence had begun. The world had turned to light. Every surface, every shadow, every breath of wind was filled with it. From orbit, Earth no longer looked like a planet but a star blazing at the heart of a storm. The solstice dawn trembled under the pressure of energy radiating from the surface, its hull groaning as systems overloaded one by one. Alarms echoed through the bridge, but the captain stood unmoving, his eyes fixed on the massive gate above the planet. The white light spilling from it pulsed in rhythm with Earth's heartbeat, every pulse sending ripples through space like waves in a sea of stars. Then, slowly, the light began to shape itself. The void that had once devoured entire worlds, the abyss, stopped advancing. Its endless darkness seemed to hesitate, swirling in confusion as the new energy spread through the system. The once devouring storm of shadow was now caught in place, reacting as if it had seen something it feared. On the planet's surface, the glowing sphere at the core started to unfold, its layers separating like petals of a mechanical flower. The energy within was no longer chaotic. It moved with purpose, with pattern. The humans watching from the ground felt it, not as heat or pressure, but as emotion, a wave of calm certainty that spread through them like the memory of sunlight after endless night. The figures of light around them turned, forming a circle. Their voices blended together into a single resonant tone that filled the air with harmony and power. The captain's communicator crackled. "Sir, the arc core on the solstice dawn is synchronizing. All readings are stabilizing. Whatever this is, it's working." He didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the gate, where faint outlines were starting to emerge. At first, they looked like ships, but not the sleek vessels of the Council or the rigid designs of humanity. These were vast, intricate structures of silver and gold, their shapes shifting like reflections in water. As they drew closer, their surfaces came alive with markings, the same symbols etched deep beneath Earth's crust. "They're not attacking," the engineer whispered, shielding her eyes. "They're answering the signal." The realization hit them all at once. These weren't invaders. They were the architects, the ancient creators of the core itself, returning from whatever dimension they had vanished into. For countless eons, the galaxy had believed them extinct, their works left behind as ruins and myths. But now, they were here, drawn by the human signal that had reawakened their creation. The gate widened to full size, filling the sky. The energy radiating from it formed streams of light that wrapped around the abyss, binding it like chains. For the first time, the darkness recoiled, its edges flickering. The architect ships released harmonic waves that merged with Earth's pulse, weaving a net of pure energy. The void screamed, not as sound, but as distortion, a ripple of wrongness that bent the stars. The captain pressed his hands against the console, watching as data flooded the screens. "The field's holding," the scientist reported, her voice shaking. "It's pushing the abyss back." But the victory was not complete. The readings spiked again, showing instability deep within Earth's core. The energy output was too high. The planet couldn't contain it much longer. The engineer stared at the scanner. "If this continues, Earth will tear itself apart." The captain's face tightened. "There has to be another way. The architects wouldn't build a weapon that destroys itself." The figure of light nearest to him stepped forward, its shape flickering like a flame in wind. Its voice was gentle yet carried the weight of ages. "The architects did not build this to destroy. They built it to transform. The seed must break for the light to rise." The captain realized what it meant. The planet itself was the cocoon. The core wasn't a weapon of defense. It was a mechanism of rebirth. But rebirth always demanded sacrifice. He turned to his team. "If we stop it, the abyss consumes everything. If we let it finish, Earth dies." Silence hung between them, broken only by the steady pulse of the core. The engineer looked toward the horizon, where the cracks in the earth glowed like veins of fire. "Maybe it's not about saving the planet," she said quietly. "Maybe it's about saving what comes after." Her words lingered as the captain made his choice. He raised his communicator. "All ships, pull to safe distance. Maintain observation. Earth is activating the final phase." From orbit, fleets of human and alien ships drifted back as the light around the planet intensified. The Council's commanders hesitated, torn between fear and awe. None dared to fire again. The galaxy watched as the little blue world at the edge of a spiral arm became the center of creation's fury. The abyss screamed again, tendrils of darkness slashing at the energy field. But the light held. The architect vessels expanded their formation, their energy merging with Earth's core. The gate above began to spin faster, its rings interlocking like gears in a cosmic machine. And then, with a soundless flash, a beam of light erupted from Earth, striking the heart of the abyss. The darkness shattered. It didn't explode, but simply disintegrated, dissolving into particles that were drawn into the gate. The consuming void that had devoured hundreds of civilizations was gone, absorbed, neutralized, or perhaps transformed. But the core kept growing brighter. The ground beneath the humans cracked open, and molten light poured upward like rivers of gold. The engineer stumbled, clutching her visor. "Captain! The energy's reversing. It's pulling inward now." The captain steadied her. "It's not destruction. It's release." The sky turned white. The oceans boiled into mist. Every atom of the planet vibrated as though it remembered something ancient. From orbit, Earth no longer looked solid. It was becoming translucent, its surface fading into the light. And then something remarkable happened. Amid the blinding glow, shapes began to rise from the planet. Not debris, not rock, but silhouettes of cities, forests, and oceans made of pure energy. It was as if the memory of Earth itself was lifting free, taking form again beyond the physical. The solstice dawn sensors confirmed what no one dared believe. "Captain, Earth isn't dying. It's ascending." The captain stared at the glowing sphere below. "Then humanity's not ending," he murmured. "It's evolving." As the transformation continued, every human on the surface felt the same pulse move through their bodies. It was like their minds were expanding, connecting, understanding. The light around them wasn't foreign, it was part of them. Every heartbeat, every memory, every dream resonated with the rhythm of the core. They were the final link, the missing element that allowed the sequence to complete. The figures of light, the remnants of the architects, watched in silence. Then, one of them stepped forward and placed a hand of pure energy against the captain's chest. "The seed is strong. You have done what we could not." He wanted to ask what came next, but before he could speak, the figure dissolved into the air, merging with the light. One by one, they all faded, their forms scattering into the sky until only the humans remained. The light reached its peak. For a single, endless moment, all of existence went still. No sound, no motion, just peace. Then, with a final pulse, the light burst outward, spreading across the galaxy in a wave that touched every world, every ship, every being. And as it passed, the stars themselves seemed to brighten, as though remembering something long forgotten. When the glow faded, Earth was gone. In its place floated a luminous sphere, vast and radiant, surrounded by fragments of crystal and light. It wasn't a planet anymore. It was something new, something alive. The captain's voice trembled as he whispered, "It's beautiful." But just as relief began to wash over the watching fleets, a new signal appeared on their sensors, a faint pulse echoing from deep space, carrying the same pattern as the one Earth had sent. Only this one wasn't coming from within the galaxy. It was coming toward it. The scientist stared at the data, disbelief written across her face. "Another signal. From outside. Something else heard us." The captain turned slowly toward the stars. Beyond the rim of the galaxy, where darkness once ruled, faint lights were beginning to appear, millions of them, moving closer. For the first time since the beginning, the galaxy held its breath again. Humanity had unveiled its true might, reshaped creation itself. But now something was answering, and in that silent pause, as the first of the new lights crossed into known space, one thought echoed across every human mind. The story isn't over. The lights on the edge of the galaxy kept moving closer. For a long moment, no one on the ships or stations dared to speak. Even the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The captain stood on the bridge of the solstice dawn, staring at the shimmering horizon of the universe as the new signals approached. His reflection glimmered faintly in the glass, the glow of the transformed Earth, or what remained of it, still visible behind him. It was no longer a planet, but a radiant sphere of energy pulsing gently, like the heartbeat of something reborn. Humanity had changed the shape of creation, but the question that hung over everyone was simple and heavy. What came next? The readings grew stronger, and the ship's AI confirmed what they were seeing. The incoming signals weren't hostile, just immense. Thousands of energy patterns, each unique, each alive. They moved in unison, not as an army, but as a choir of stars. Every frequency they emitted harmonized with the pulse of the new Earth. And for the first time, the crew realized these weren't strangers at all. They were echoes of civilizations long gone, awakened by the same wave humanity had unleashed. The architects had not vanished, they had transcended, waiting beyond the borders of known space until the sequence was complete. The engineer's voice trembled as she watched the data form patterns across her screen. "They're singing back to us," she whispered. "They're responding to Earth's signal. It's like they recognize us." The captain exhaled slowly. "Maybe they do. Maybe this was always meant to happen." Across the galaxy, reports came flooding in. Worlds that had once been lifeless now shimmered with new growth. Ancient ruins were activating, restoring environments that had been dead for ages. Even the coldest corners of space were warming as the wave of light passed through. Humanity's signal had not destroyed, it had revived. The abyss was gone, the darkness scattered into nothing, and in its place, something vibrant had taken root. On the surface, where the core once lay, only a field of luminous mist remained. From orbit, it shimmered like a living ocean, reflecting the colors of the galaxies around it. And though no human body remained there, every mind that had once stood upon that soil was part of the new pulse that beat within it. Humanity had not vanished. They had become part of the greater whole. Those who were still in orbit could feel it. The captain, the engineer, and every surviving soul on their ships felt a connection deep inside them, as though the planet itself whispered through their thoughts. "It's not gone," the scientist said softly. "Earth didn't die. It evolved into something beyond form. Maybe that was the purpose all along, to move past what we were." The captain nodded, though his eyes were damp. "We always thought strength meant conquering, surviving. But maybe our true strength was remembering, to hold on to hope long enough to awaken everything else." As the gate above began to fade, the light settled into calm. The newly awakened architect vessels drifted closer, surrounding the glowing sphere. Their presence didn't feel alien anymore. It felt familiar, almost comforting. Through the comms, a sound came through, not words, but a gentle tone that resonated with every living thing. It carried meaning beyond language. The engineer smiled faintly. "They're saying thank you." From every corner of the galaxy, human outposts and ships received the same message. It wasn't a command or a warning, it was an acknowledgement. Humanity had reignited the heart of creation. The same energy that had birthed the first civilizations now flowed through their veins. They were no longer just one species among countless others. They had become part of the galactic memory itself, woven into the fabric of what came before and what would come after. Weeks passed, and the fleets that had once prepared for war began working together. The Council, humbled by what they had witnessed, extended an alliance that was no longer about control, but coexistence. No one could deny what humanity had done. For all their flaws, for all their chaos and courage, they had reminded the galaxy that life's greatest force wasn't domination. It was creation. The captain of the Solstice Dawn stood on the observation deck one final time, watching as the glowing sphere of new Earth shimmered in the void. The stars seemed brighter now, each one pulsing faintly in rhythm with the sphere. The engineer stood beside him, silent for a while before she spoke. "Do you think we'll ever understand what really happened?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe we don't need to. Maybe the point isn't to understand, but to be part of it. We woke something bigger than all of us, and somehow it didn't destroy us. It made us whole." The ship's instruments picked up another pulse then, faint but distinct. It wasn't from the architect ships this time. It was coming from deep within the new Earth itself. The frequency was unmistakable. "It's human," the scientist whispered, tears in her eyes. "They're still there. Everyone who was on the surface, their consciousness is alive inside the core. The bridge fell silent. No one spoke as the realization sank in. The people who had sacrificed everything hadn't vanished. They had become the guardians of this new dawn, the living heart of the reborn world. The captain lowered his head, his voice quiet. Then humanity never ended. We just changed form. Outside the window, the luminous sphere pulsed again, brighter this time, as if acknowledging his words. For a fleeting moment, he thought he heard something in that pulse. A whisper carried through the light. It was faint, but unmistakably human. "We're still here." The sound faded into the hum of the ship's systems, leaving behind only the quiet peace of space. The solstice dawn began to move away, joining the other ships that now orbited the shining sphere. It wasn't a farewell, not truly. It was a beginning. As months turned to years, the light from the reborn Earth spread further, carried by signals and stories. Across thousands of worlds, species spoke of the day the galaxy paused, and of the humans who had awakened it. They were no longer the fragile newcomers once dismissed by greater powers. They were the ones who had reignited the stars, who had reminded creation what it meant to feel alive. And somewhere, deep within that sphere of light, the voices of those who started it all continued to echo, watching, guiding, ensuring the balance held. The core pulsed with the same rhythm as a heartbeat, steady and endless. In time, new life began to form around the luminous sphere. Small vessels approached its orbit, carrying explorers and dreamers who wanted to see the place where it all began. None could touch it, but all could feel its warmth, like standing in the glow of an eternal sunrise. They called it the heart of humanity, though everyone knew it was more than that. It was a reminder that no matter how vast the galaxy became, it was built upon one simple truth, that hope, once kindled, could never be extinguished. Generations later, when historians spoke of that day, they didn't call it an end or a disaster. They called it the awakening. The day humanity unveiled its true might, and the galaxy didn't fall to fear, but rose in wonder. The last log recorded by the Solstice Dawn captain remained archived in every colony and ship. His voice, calm and certain, became a message that outlived him. We came from a small blue world that dared to dream beyond its reach. We faced darkness, and instead of fighting it, we became light. Wherever you are, remember this. Our strength was never in our weapons, but in our will to protect what's beautiful. That's what made us human. That's what still does. And as his words echoed across time, the galaxy turned beneath the glow of the new Earth, pulsing softly, endlessly. Humanity had transcended, not through domination, but through connection. The gate to the stars had opened, and through it, a million new possibilities awaited. In the silence between heartbeats, the universe remembered the moment humanity revealed its true power. And then, as always, it moved forward, guided by the light they left behind.